When a game is easy to carry from one place to another, accompanied by having relatively simple rules, it shouldn't be surprising if a game is spread across the world, especially when it's part of a conquering army or aboard a ship during the age of exploration. Like a good idea, when a good game arrives at a new location, there's a good chance that it will be adopted by the locals. Greetings and welcome back to Checkpoint Gaming, Checkers. With this episode, we will be going over Alquerque. With the game of Alquerque, which is also known as Kurkat or Alquerque, it has a long history, dating back to the 10th century as it was first recorded in the Arabic historian Abu al-Faraj al-Isfahani's book Kitab al-Aghani, or Book of Songs. But since it was a book of poetry, the rules weren't provided within its pages. And since the Iberian Peninsula was the European gateway for Arab culture, the game most likely got introduced to Europe through that avenue as seen with the rules being listed within the book Libro de los Juegos, or the Book of Games, in 1283, which was commissioned by Alfonso X, who was the king of what would later become Spain, and it was due to the Spaniards that the game got its name of Alquerque. There is even some archaeological evidence suggesting that it can be traced back to ancient Egypt, although it seems like that isn't definite. We would like to learn more about this, so if any of you have studied the matter or know where we should turn to learn about it, we'd like to know. It also seems like ancient Egypt has appeared a fair number of times in our recent games research, although that shouldn't be all that surprising since ancient Egypt is part of the Fertile Crescent, or Fertile Crescent adjacent, and one of a number of different cradles of civilization, so it shouldn't be all that surprising that ancient Egypt keeps appearing when we look into board games with a long history to it. Alquerque is also considered to be the predecessor of checkers. With setting up for the game, it is played between that of two players, where each player is to receive 12 pieces, where one set consists of dark-colored pieces, while the other set consists of light-colored pieces. Although it is also possible for the pieces to consist of any shape, they typically consist of counters or discs. With the board, it consists of a 4x4 grid with the piece movement occurring along the intersecting lines instead of from the squares themselves, essentially making it a 5x5 play area. With the placement of each piece, the players are to place them upon the points of the board, which are represented by the line and edge intersections. With the basic grid lines of the board, each point is connected to each other through the use of orthogonal lines, which include the edges of the board itself. With the squares that make up the board, 4 of them can be seen as constructing a larger square that we'll be referring to as a tile, with these tiles found in the upper left, upper right, and lower left of the board. On top of this, the central point of each tile is connected diagonally to the corner points of said tile, and vice versa. This creates a diamond shape in the center of the board, as well as 4 triangles with the board's edges acting as the triangle's base. With the placement of the pieces upon the board, each player is to place their given pieces upon the 10 points found in the 2 rows found directly in front of them, as well as the 2 rightmost points upon the middle row. Once all of the pieces have been placed upon the board, the middle point is to be without a piece. With determining who will go first, it is to be done at random, so we'll leave it up to the players on how they would like to decide this. In subsequent games, the first player position is to alternate between the players. It is worth pointing out that since there is only one move option available at the beginning of the game, it is generally seen as being disadvantageous to be the first player. This is because there is only a single point for a piece to be moved into, even though 3 pieces can be selected from when it comes to moving into this initial point. The objective of the game is to have one player move as many of their pieces as possible to the other side of the board while also capturing their opponent's pieces during the process. A player wins when they have either captured all of the opposing player's pieces or to have things arranged so that the opposing player is unable to perform a move on their given turn. The winner is the player who has the most surviving pieces or has blocked their opponent in. It is also possible for a game to end in a draw, which occurs by agreement by both players. So if it becomes apparent that neither player is able to capture any more pieces, along with both players having the same number of pieces left, then a draw is to occur. When it comes to that of moving the pieces within any given game, it's going to alternate between the players where each player is to move just a single piece on their turn. When it comes to that of moving a piece, 2 options are available for the players. First is to simply move into an adjacent point that is either forward, sideways, or diagonally forward, never backwards. With that said, a previous move is unable to be undone. So once a piece has reached the far row, at least from their perspective, said piece can only perform a capture by moving sideways. But in our research, we saw a rule state that a piece is not allowed to return to a point that it has already occupied. So if a piece is found upon the final row and it has already occupied the other accessible points, then it can no longer engage in a move. We also came across an alternative rule where pieces are able to move backwards, where the winner is the player who has removed all of their opponent's pieces. At this point, we'll leave it up to the players on if they wish to implement these given rules. Second is to jump over an opposing piece into an empty point found on the other side of the opposing piece in either forward, sideways, or diagonally forward directions. And only a single piece is able to be jumped over at a time. When a piece has been jumped, it is to be removed from the board. If a player notices that their opponent has failed to engage in a capture when a capture opportunity presented itself, then said player can use the Huff rule discussed in episode 1 to remove the offending piece before said player is to perform their next move. And if multiple jumps in a single turn is able to be performed by a single piece, then the player is to continue performing jumps as long as it's done in a forward, sideways, or diagonally forward direction. This lasts until there are no more jumps available for the piece to make. And since the jumping piece doesn't have to maximize the number of jumps, the player can engage in any jumping path they wish until it can no longer perform a jump. On top of this, if there are multiple pieces that can perform a jump, the controlling player will get to decide which piece is to perform the jump. If multiple jump directions are available for a given piece, then the controlling player can choose which jumping path their given piece is able to perform. And the jump comes to an end when the capturing piece no longer has the capability to capture any more opposing pieces. An alternate rule to this has it so that the capturing player chooses to no longer engage in capturing. So with that said, that is what you need to know about Alquerque. With that taken care of, we can start talking about Fanarona. If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a like. And if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode and happy gaming.